You're watching another episode of Boiler Room Collections. We are here in Lagos for the very first time as part of our project with the British Council out here. And sitting next to me, I have Mr. Odion.Iruoje and Temitope Gogbe. Mr. Odion is probably one of the most influential record producers around the kind of West African sound that came out in, I guess, kind of,
70s.
Yeah, 70s, kind of second half of last century. And Temitope is a record collector, record dealer, DJ. But I mean, you guys could introduce yourselves. That would be great for those that don't know watching.
Yes, I'm Odion.Iruoje and a record producer. I worked with TMI as the resident producer, and as a producer I've worked with many popular musicians around the world, from Africa to UK, America. So, I work with popular musicians like Fela, even Paul McCartney on Bad on the Run. Work with him, and so many.
Great. And Temi?
Hi, I'm Temi. I collect records and I run a label with Mr. Odion called Odion Livingstone. And we reissue some of his back catalog and some of the music of the times when he was working actively.
Great. Well, let's jump in. Let's have a record and then we can talk about it and everything it entails.
Taxi!
You know they shame, plenty husband is too much. Plenty drivers without labor. If you must go, nobody cares. If you marry taxi driver, I don't care. If you marry lorry driver, I don't care. If you marry railway driver, I don't care. If you marry motor driver, I don't care.
So tell me, what's this one we're listening to now?
This is by a guy called Bobby Benson, who was probably one of the biggest high life musicians. And as Mr. Odion was saying, he actually popularized high life music in Nigeria. I think he was one of the first people that had a TV show also. So he was really a character, very important.
Okay, so big celebrity. And I guess so. Is this, he said he was one of the biggest artists of the time, and you were telling me earlier kind of the characteristics of high life and where it came from. Could you explain maybe a little bit about that and this?
Yeah, what we're hearing is high life. High life is the mother of popular music in Nigeria. The first popular music idiom in this country was high life. A native of West Africa, and it got its roots from Kokoma. Kokoma was a social music that is played in social events like burial, marriage, naming ceremony, birthday ceremonies, and state balls. That was the first social music that went round. I'm not sure if it was recorded, but that was it. The one you are hearing now is by the father of popular music in Nigeria. He started popular pop music. When he came back from America, he was playing jazz. He was a jazz musician. Then E.T. Mensah came in the early 51 to tour Nigeria. And he took advantage of that tour to bring out this, you see, to come out with this particular number.
Right, okay. And I mean, you were telling me a little bit earlier, but you know, for a lot of people watching, they're kind of Nigerian music from the kind of 50s through to 70s and 80s is kind of thought of, you know, as quite similar. But could you maybe explain the differences between, you know, high life and what kind of is more familiar to maybe the Boiler Room audience, which is Afrobeat, you know, the kind of fella sound?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes. High life, as I said, was the main popular music that was played socially. When you listen to that music, you find that the horns will introduce the song, playing the song first before the singer. Right. This phenomenon was changed by a particular release of High Life called Boswe. By not introducing the song, okay, before the singer. Lines were just arranged to back the singer. But the fella now established it with different arrangements by now removing the horns, introducing the playing the song first before the singer. What fella did was just arrange the backing lines. He arranged the backing lines, and that's all, without repeating the song or chorus with the singer. Just lines to back the song itself. So that's the difference between the old High Life and the Afrobeat. Afrobeat itself is a transformation of High Life. It has pushed man and creativity to the limit on the transformation of High Life, created by fella.
Right, okay, great. Tell me, what's this one playing now?
This is by a guy called Orlando Julius.
This is Orlando Julius.
It's like a High Life jazzy kind of.
It's very close to Afrobeat. His own brand was close to Afrobeat.
Okay, right. So when did you see kind of the change? You mentioned it was, you know, fella who kind of I guess brought High Life to Afrobeat. You know, but when did you see the change? When did you see kind of High Life turning into? When?
When fella did Jankoku Afrobeat, when we did Jankoku in EMI in the 70s, I think it's 73 or something. You know, 72, 73, that we did Jankoku. That was when the change came on the change came.
Right. And you produced that? I
produced Jankoku, yes.
And that was his first release on EMI?
Yes.
Could you tell us?
There's a fantastic story behind that.
But it's all over the place.
Well, I think you should just maybe give us an edited version of the story. You know.
All right. Fella had gone around all companies and they rejected him. They didn't want to record it. But he wanted this record because it was a new sound. Wanted it recorded by a popular record company. And EMI was the biggest and the most popular. So he came to us. He first came, the first visit he came, MD decided not to receive him because he was a troublemaker and he rejected all over the place. So he did not want to see him. He went back. He came back the following week, the same thing. Now the third visit, the MD and myself were just walking along the parking lot from where you can see the gate where fella was standing. And he wanted to come in again. And the MD wanted to reject him. I said, no, look, this man, this is his third visit here. So I've been coming for 3 times. He must have something to offer. You must give him audience. Let's give him audience. Say, okay, well, it's up to you. Look, whatever happens, I'm telling Manchester Square, it's yours. It's your baby. Not mine. If he comes in here to make trouble, that's yours. I said, no, let us give him an audience. He has to have something to offer. So we asked him, as he was coming in, he just said, Odion Baba. So to go to MD's office, he said, no, to go to my office. He refused to go to the MD's office. So we went to my office and decided, he told us he had one sound, a new sound, and he wants it produced by EMI because he knows EMI is the biggest and it can go all over the world on EMI label. So MD was very reluctant. I said, look, I'm going to listen to it on the rehearsal. Let me go and listen. He said, well, look, if you can agree, fantastic. So I went on the Wednesday to listen to his rehearsal, listen to the sound. Came back to tell the MD, it's fantastic. I've never had anything like that before. Since I've been in the music industry, I've never had anything like that. He just took it, he wasn't serious with it. He didn't take me seriously. And I gave fella a date to come and record. So we brought a contract, we signed the contract, and he told us there's nothing, no string attached, doesn't want the contract. That no string attached, he just wants to record, you release it. After releasing, then I can come back. I can come back for the contract. So I gave him a date and he recorded it. Went away, he said, look, to start with, he wants this thing promoted. So we should buy a van. This is a Volkswagen van with loudspeakers on the roof and with a record player. And we should play around Lagos on that very day of release.
Wow.
Yes. He said that's the only demand he's making for now. So we did that, and of course, on that day of release, it was like wildfire. It went around the whole Lagos, and we couldn't believe this. Nobody could believe the sound. It spread like wildfire everywhere. So we sold this thing, and he said he will come back in 3 months' time after releasing. That was the song,
Right.
Yes, and we were enjoying the sales. One day we had the fella was at the gate. Looked at it, 3 months already completed. So we allowed him in. So the MD came out and he still told them, we had signed the contract with Odion Baba's office, not his office. We got there and said, well, I gave you Jara because yesterday was Sunday. That was the day that you would have come. But that was Jara for you. So anyway, so we wanted to talk. He said, shh. It's my turn to talk now. You talked last time, I want to talk now. He said, now. No, we had to go to MD's office. I appealed to him, look, you have to sign the contract, it must be in the MD's office. So we went to the MD's office and he said, look, you don't open the MD's window. He said, first and foremost, you need a car. A respectable car, a car that people will see with him. It's a star now, and he needs a very respectable car. So he opened the window, say, what's that car? He says, send this car. I said, well, I'm going to drive this car out today. That's the car I'm going to take.
What kind of car was it?
Mercedes.
Saloon?
No, Mercedes.
Convertible?
Not convertible. Okay. Station wagon.
Okay, station wagon.
Yes. And but that same this car, can you drive it? I said, that is the car I want now. And I'm taking the bus you use for promotion. So I called the MD, well, nothing wrong with that. You get another one, let's give him. I mean, so that was that. So now it's instruments. They wanted complete instruments. All the whole lines, including baritones, guitars and everything, complete drum kit. My goodness. So MD said, look, what you have sold, we think we can recoup from that, recoup the amount from it. So I said, okay, call the accountant, let him go through the books. Let us go. The accountant kept saying, well, with all this, we are still owing fella. So he has to take everything.
Wow. No compromises from day one.
No compromise. So that's what we did.
Could you tell us a little bit about your creative role in, producing for Fela on that track in particular?
Yeah, I changed the. That track. I didn't play much role. It was on the second single, "Beautiful Dancer," that I played a lot of role. But I had done something during the hassle of Jankoku. We all discussed it, and because I wanted it to be recorded in time, I didn't want to waste any time. So we discussed it on rehearsal. We just played it as Fela had arranged it, as he wanted it.
Okay.
Without wasting time.
Right.
I didn't put much role there. But "Beautiful Dancer," I changed the drumming, Alan's drumming, because it was very monotonous, just playing sound and playing snare and the bass drum. So look, you have to be dynamic with your bass drum, sing along with it, answer choruses, answer things. They changed that. Now, I call Fela Afrobeat is an African beat, and it's synonymous with drums, plenty of drums. I want you to add 2 more congas. He had just one conga, a set of 3 congas, played by Kofi. So I said, I need 2 more for the body. You should add it. Say, well, Odion, look, I don't have any money. If you want it, 1 more drum, then go and get it. So I went out to get 2 more congas. That's how we added those 2 congas to the body. And he now added the snare, the sticks and the shekere.
Okay, yeah.
So we now have very rich body with the 2 congas, a big one and a smaller one. Played by one Ghanaian guy and another Nigerian. Those are my roles. That's my own contribution to Afrobeat was those 2 drums that I added on "Beautiful Dancer."
Right, okay, so that was kind of, I guess what you'd call, this is a kind of like a proto-Afrobeat tune, right at the kind of beginning.
What?
So this was, I guess what you'd call a
That's the beginning of Afrobeat.
Yeah, right.
And it is the transformation of our life.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And so did you see when, the first Fela tracks came out on EMI, did you see, were people less interested in High Life then?
Yes.
Yeah?
High Life had gone. After the war actually killed High Life. First of all, Les Lawson had died, and some of them were already old now, and nobody was interested in High Life anymore. We only had this, what I introduced, the Afro rock, was the thing raining. At that time, there was no more High Life. So I started with Hikers. I started with them, and then...
I think before we go to the Afro rock, let's talk a bit about Ofege. Ofege was one of the bands you...
Yeah, Ofege was the band I started session men with.
How did you discover Ofege? How did you?
Well, it was a concert show in Lagos, and they came third. But to me, they should be first. So I approached the singer. I said, "Please come and see me see me in the office. I think I'm interested in your band. I want to make a record with." They were the third, but Ofege was just the first as far as I was concerned. I didn't know why they picked the other guys from Igbobi or so. That's how I met Ofege, and they came to the office. So I asked them to go and get something into a cassette, let me listen to. He came with the song, fine. So we rehearsed several times and then I recorded them. After recording, I invited Beckley Jones, a wonderful guitarist, Beckley Jones. So we started, because the Odion guitar wasn't quite good, and the keyboard. So we rearranged the guitar, the rhythm, and the lead, just me and Beckley Jones in the studio. They don't know who, they did not know him. I only brought him to the studio. That parallel is the only one we accepted from their guitarist. The rest guitar was done by Beckley Jones in the studio. So we arranged the music. That's what we found out.
Okay, right. Wow, interesting. How did you wind up working for EMI in Nigeria?
Then the music industry, in fact, economy in Nigeria was going on the downturn, and it was Abacha. A lot of multinationals were resigning and going. So when Kingsway closed, I called my friend and said, look, if Kingsway, UAC, can close Kingsway, then we are doomed economically in this country. Of course, shortly after that, a lot of the multinationals were leaving the country. EMI followed. Before EMI left, I had left.
Okay, right.
I had left.
Okay. So, I mean, before you worked for EMI in Nigeria, you were working in London. Is that correct?
I was not working in London. I had a program at Imperial College, and when I finished, my supervisor felt that I have finished 6 months short of the time, so I have 6 months to do something. And Dr. Lambo, Professor Lambo, UI VC, asked them to let me visit relevant companies, and at least that will make some good. So every company that I visited wanted to employ me, that had subsidiary here, wanted to employ me. And EMI was the last to interview me. I think he knew somebody he was close to Professor Brown, so he talked to him, that they want that guy. So Professor called me, said, well, you got 3 offers. I tell you, EMI is the best for you. Very adventurous, because it's a combination of art and engineering. So he will advise me to take on EMI. That's how I was employed. So I was I did some training with them for 3 months before I was seconded to Nigeria.
Okay, so you training in London, and then they moved you out to Nigeria then?
Yes.
Right.
As the chief engineer and the producer and studio manager. In fact, virtually everything. I was the A&R manager, the studio manager, the chief engineer, and the resident producer.
Wow, okay, so
I was trained for all that.
Right. And so now you're going into business with Temi. You guys are starting your own record label.
Yes. Odion Livingstone.
Odion Livingstone, right. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Actually, maybe it might be good to hear how you guys met. Temi, do you want to...
Very interesting. My son called me and said somebody had been calling him who wanted to meet me. That he had some friends from Europe too who want to meet me, talk to me, interview me, but they didn't know how to reach me. So he arranged on phone a meeting between both of us and gave them our address, so they came. They never met, he and my son never met at that time. So they came to the house, and prior to that, before then, I had many interviews, and people approached me who wanted to work with me, but I was most impressed by Okay. That's why I decided to work with him.
Right. Okay. And what made you get in touch, Temi? Was there anything in particular that?
Well, the music I was interested in, his name kept popping up as producer. So I asked a friend of mine, do you know this guy? He goes, yeah, he goes to my church. He's a badass guy, he wears dark glasses in church, leather stuff, you know. I'm like, yeah, that's the guy, you know. So that guy, Odion.Iruoje, who's a great photographer, introduced me to his son. And it took like 3 months of, you know, constant badgering to get through to him. And Loaka Bop was around, so they wanted to do an interview for the Vinyl Factory. So I just used that as an excuse to get through to him, but it was just a ruse. It was just an excuse to get, you know, to him. And well, we did the interview, and then I said, look, you know, I have this idea. We should be reissuing stuff, you know, because most of the labels, reissue labels, were based in London and Europe, and it was a very DJ-centric kind of perspective on the music. And I felt popular music in Nigeria was a bit more than what they were putting out. And I sold it to a few guys I knew when I was in London, and they hooked it up. So now we have a label coming out on Strut K7, and it's all done, it's all signed. And we're going to be putting out stuff like this. It's by a band called Grotto, which is a very rare record. And it was just a band that EMI was pushing, you know, in the wake of the Ofege success, because Ofege was a big success. So they started doing a lot of youth bands, you know, boy bands really.
They influenced a lot of youth bands.
And these guys only wanted to play hard rock and funk. So it was really, really interesting. And that's one of the records. Another one, yeah, Apple was another one. This is another good one, Tabernacle.
Right. Okay. So what year would this be coming out in?
I can't remember now.
Probably early 70s, maybe 74, 73. Yeah.
Late, yeah, 70 something.
70, you know. Bloody fine there. University of Ife. So it was early 70s, I would say, because it was the wake of the success of Ofege.
Right, okay. And you mentioned, you know, this record's really rare, and we've kind of heard from various, you know, collectors and diggers that buying records in, you know, West Africa can be a real challenge. Where do you generally find stuff like this?
This one is from his collection.
Ah, okay, right.
Okay, so a lot of the records I find is people that, you know, were interested in music at the time and had collections themselves. It's really hard because there's no market for vinyl really now. You can't go to a shop and find vinyl, you know. So you need to really go to people who had collections back in the day. But it's, you know, it's been very rewarding. You can find records anywhere. You know, you need to be like very adventurous.
Right.
Just head out.
You mentioned that you do trips to Ghana as well.
Yeah, I do trips around West Africa. I've been to Ghana, Niger, all around, just looking for records. And it's been crazy. It's a way to know know the countries around you, know how people live. It's fun. I enjoy. And it's crazy because you can fund a trip by a few records, you know. If you get the records, you know.
If you're willing to sell them as well.
Yeah. But some I have doubles of, okay, which I sell. So most I don't sell. I mean, most of the rare ones. But some I sell. This is a record that we're trying to put out.
Great. Can we hear a bit of it?
Friday Night by Olivier Kemizier. Really disco record. not like the other African record, the other Nigerian disco records, a bit different. It sounds like, well, I'll let you tell me what you think it sounds like, but it's one of those records that a lot of collectors are after. Blue vinyl, pristine. You can almost eat it. Okay, I'm gonna play Classic Lover.
Why you wanna kiss me all the time? You gonna kiss me? You gonna kiss me? You gonna kiss me? Why you gonna love me all the time? You gonna love me? You gonna kiss me? You gonna kiss me?
So this record was put out in the early 80s, and it just has this New York, proto house.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, vibe. And it's, I still, I talked to the, he just put this record out after school, and he never pursued a career in music. So when I got his number, which took like a year of, looking for it, he was very skeptical. He thought I was maybe some, what we call 419 in Nigeria.
Scam.
Yeah, some
scammers.
scam artist, yeah. Or kidnapper, because he's quite rich now. He did a lot of, he did a career in oil,
Right.
upstream oil and gas. So he was very skeptical, and he was like, so you want my record, And he was like, okay. After a few, weeks, he says, okay, call my lawyer. And then things got, we got to a level where he said, okay, yeah, you guys can do it. But yeah, it's an amazing record for a collector, because it's not like what the other people were putting out,
Sure, yeah. It's, I mean, as you said, it sounds really New York, but it's still very Nigerian, the chorus,
Yeah.
especially, that's,
The
chorus.
Yeah.
There was a characteristic of 80s disco, and that was the lyrics in Nigeria. You had to sound like American as much as possible.
Yes.
It didn't matter what you were saying, or if it made sense. Just make it sound foreign, American. And I think he was affecting that kind of accent, which makes it kind of really, different. But it was a very interesting record.
Sure, so you guys are reissuing this one, yeah? Wow, okay.
Well, we hope to start with this one.
Right, yeah, I can't wait to get it. And so it was, what's his name? What's the artist's name?
Levy Ekemizie.
Was he at all aware that the record was highly sought after at all, or?
He had no idea.
Wow.
He had no idea. And he didn't even understand that people knew about it, because I'm sure a lot of people close to him never knew he had a career in music, or he put out a record at some point in his life. So he was like, he was a bit intrigued that, so I had to tell him, look, some white boys in, Russia and Japan are looking for this record, and they're offering me, hundreds of dollars for this record. And he was like, yeah, and then, he kind of got more interested, because he said, I told him, look, just, you don't do it for the money, just do it. So you didn't, because he put the record out and tried to make something out of it, it didn't happen. So it was not a very happy ending, So he said, just, try and, make it a happy ending, even though it was deferred for like 20, 30 years. but try and make something out of it. So he said, okay,
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that reissue will go down a storm. People are crazy for West African, disco, funk and boogie at the moment, as we saw with William Onyeabor, whatever, 2 or 3 years ago. What's this you're lining up? Tell me.
This is Blow. It was one of the first big rock albums, Afro rock albums.
I did this.
That he produced, and it kind of set the sound. And then other bands heard this record
Yes.
and wanted to do something like this, So all the progressive musicians started looking for him because they knew that the guy that did this sound and also worked on the Fela stuff is the guy we want to work with.
Right.
And he was pushing a lot of, well, I'll let him talk about it, but he was pushing a lot of African folklore, tradition, music. He was encouraging the musicians to put
do that, put a lot of African elements, folklores, history, music, instrumentation, to really manifest in their works.
So it wasn't enough to listen to Deep Purple. You needed to come up with more than just a Deep Purple cover. You had to,
do something.
Could you give us some examples of the kind of, instrumentation, or you mentioned kind of folklore that you were encouraging? Is like particular instruments that you kind of encourage bands like this to use?
African percussions.
Right, okay.
African percussions, talking drum, congas, shekere, sticks, instrumentation. Even African flutes, with as much as possible African instruments, and then the songs. We have a lot of folklores that can be developed into pop rhythm. So I encourage them that they should do. Some would bring something copying American disco and so on. I said no. Go and get some folklore from your village and we'll do it in pop, do a disco out of it. That's how I started.
Wow, and did you ever, experience any resistance from artists to do that?
Yes. Yeah. Some, they don't understand me. They say, no, they don't want to be local. They want to play foreign. I said, fine, go and do it.
Sure,
I rejected it.
Wow.
I will reject.
Yeah.
So they went to other studios, other companies.
Yeah, it's funny because, for Western audiences, I think what is most appealing about Nigerian, funk and rock and the kind of stuff you were producing was the very traditional African elements.
Yes.
That kind of hybrid of
we mix it
traditional.
You see, those bass lines are African bass lines.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah,
right.
You see the bass, the lines, the guitars, the bass guitars, the drumming.
The feel of it.
The feel of it, from African elements.
Yeah, it's funny because you can tell records like this definitely went on to influence American and British
exactly.
acts. It's great.
And I think this is why Nigerian music is sought after, because it's distinct.
It is.
Other Ghanaians and Gambian groups at the time were just covering records direct, very little personal,
Sure.
Yeah. So Nigeria is and he is one of,
And we're actually pushing it.
the proponents of that sound. That you need to come with
something of African elements. Your culture.
Yeah.
Let them know where you're coming from.
Sure. That's actually something I wanted to talk about.
And that makes a difference anyway.
Yeah, definitely. That's something I kind of wanted to talk about because, in other West African countries, like Ghana and Guinea, it was like a lot of hotel bands that were kind of at that time. And obviously they had to play covers, they had to play all types of different music because of the clientele that were coming to see them. Was that the same in Nigeria, or was it more of a music fan kind of approach? Were there gigs?
Yeah, you had cover bands, you had people playing the soul stuff when, Eddie Floyd was around.
Soul.
You had all those cover bands. But because people like Fela was very successful
Yes.
doing the Afrobeat.
Afro
He
thing.
kind of made,
He influenced it too.
yeah, he made that option very non-interesting, you know. So most progressive musicians wanted to play, you know, something African. Some
But
distinct.
there has some elements of African culture and whatever.
So what was the kind of last era you were producing heavily in?
This is one of the big records now that a lot of collectors are after. He produced this album and he wrote most of the music. It's an amazing electro disco record.
You listen to that guitar, it is something from a folklore.
Could you expand on that a little bit?
It's something from a folklore, you know, from a folklore chorus. And I'm using the guitar to play it, just to back the song.
Right, okay. So where did you get, like, where did you learn these, you know, these folkloric songs? Were they recorded, you could hear, or was it just
No,
from...
my people telling stories.
Right, okay.
Moonlight stories and so on.
Most of us kind of grew up between an urban setting and a local, you know, always go to the village.
Yes.
And the village, there's no...
During the moonlight, you see around an old woman,
electricity. So you
old
sit
man.
outside and you tell
Yes,
stories.
tell stories.
The elders tell the young people stories. Songs.
History.
You learn songs.
Tell to the history of it.
So it's kind of records like this where, you know, an oral tradition that could have
Yeah,
gone
but I
on
mean,
for
what he's
thousands of
saying-
years culminates into recorded.
Totally modern.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
disco
you
record.
can develop it. I developed the pop music.
Yeah,
Most of it.
it's great. Sounds great. I can totally imagine hearing this in a club now still, you know?
And this record is well, this track is going to be put out very soon by, let me plug my mate, Miles, Soundwave. He's going to put this song out on a compilation he's working on. Amazing record. And there's a keyboard player on this record called Nkono Teles, a Cameroonian guy who used to work in Lagos at the time. Worked on over 200 records, session guy.
More than that.
And
With me alone, it's over 200.
amazing keyboard player. And I always told my friends, if there was any justice, there has to be an international airport somewhere named after Nkono Teles, because he's such a major artist, very major artist.
I think he worked mainly...
Cameroonian guy.
Worked mainly in Lagos, though?
Yeah, he was a Cameroonian guy.
I gave a lot of Cameroon musicians opportunities as session men. You know.
Right. And, I mean, we were talking the other day, I didn't realize how many musicians on the kind of Nigerian scene at the time weren't actually from Nigeria.
Now a lot of them are from Cameroon.
A lot of work from Cameroon. Especially the session men. I used a lot of session men from Cameroon and from Ghana. You know, because they still follow the music discipline than the Nigerian counterparts.
They had a more rigorous educational system. So they did music for like 5 years in the French system, which is, you know, you go to a proper music school, you learn music, you read music, you know. So they were professional musicians, and they had a very professional attitude. You tell a Cameroonian session
very
man,
professional attitude.
come
That's
at
the
12
word.
o'clock,
Professional
it's
attitude.
11 o'clock, he's you know, tuning his guitar. Nigerian guy is calling you up at 2 to
They're
say,
not even ready to
you know, I'm
tune
gonna
guitar.
go
They won't
slow,
know how
you
to
know?
tune the guitar for them.
Yeah, and, you know, he turns up and you're like, you know, what are you doing, you know? But it was, it was different. But Nkono Teles, major 80s producer, major 80s session man, major. Almost as important as Jake Solo, almost as important.
Wow, okay. So that track's coming out on I guess, the Nigerian Boogie Soundwave compilation.
Yeah, the new one.
Great. I mean, you were talking about Miles, who runs Soundwave. He did a collections episode as well, and he was kind of talking about, you know, Congolese bands and bands from Ivory Coast would go and record in Paris or Belgium because, you know, it's kind of ex-colony, but Nigerian bands, obviously the studios were good enough in Nigeria. Do you think that had like an effect on the output? You know, it was less of it was no European producer saying you need to make it sound like this.
Totally.
You know, it was
Yes.
essentially, right.
I mean, you had labels like Raz, Rogers All Stars, who used to put out a lot of Congolese music and Cameroonian music. You had
East Africa.
You had labels like Albarika Stores from Benin that used to use EMI studios.
From Benin.
Yeah, they used to come and use EMI studios. You had even guys like Ibo Taylor, you know, who used to come and record in EMI 7 Wharf Road, you know. So you had a lot of, because of the quality of the studios. I mean, there's a studio that had a Nebe soundboard. I mean, like handmade, you know, custom soundboard.
That
Neve soundboard. And
the personnel too.
yeah,
You know, the personnel
very
in the studio.
professional,
Yes.
well-run studios, you know. And yeah, you could get a sound out of it that you know could stand anywhere. This is another Cameroonian guy who played a lot in Nigeria, Willing For,
Cool.
who deserves a mention.
Do you want to play it, or is there something else you want to?
Yeah, he played on this also. And all these are very sought-after records. And he played on this also.
Wow. Okay. Incredible.
And these are all incredible funk records. And yeah, he ended up in Paris in the 80s. And this is Spellbound by PSK.
See, that's African. You know that there is some African element in this. Start to sound the Bushman drum.
This is amazing. This track.
They all took it from what I was doing.
All right, don't let yourself be taken back. All right, don't let yourself be taken back.
They were not interested at first. They felt that is bush. Why should I be playing bush instruments in the modern song? We can do it, and that's what they want to hear there. They don't want to hear a copy of their own thing there. Nobody's going to listen to that there.
Yeah, very true. It's still true to this day. You know,
I'm not kidding.
Music.
It's like cosmic, you know, cosmic disco.
Right.
And there's no copy that is as good as the original.
Yeah.
It's always inferior.
So you produced this record as...
No,
not this one.
Not this one.
A lot of them take after my Afro rock.
Sure, right. Other producers copy your style.
They now add African stuff into it, you know. Especially after Fela. After Fela's, so people now start recognizing the African element.
But how did working with Fela impact your career? I know Manu Dibango said that he wanted the Fela producer.
Yeah, that's why I came and I produced Homemade with him.
Okay.
Fela is a very disciplined musician. Disciplined. And he's a genius. Horn arrangement, everything. But horn arrangement is the thing. You can't beat it. The discipline I had as a producer, I learned it from Fela.
Wow, okay, right. That's interesting, because I always kind of imagine Fela as a wild man.
No, he was the most disciplined person.
The most of all the artists I worked
like
with.
a Victorian, you know, very disciplined guy. He used
Very
to practice
serious.
for hours, you know, and he couldn't tolerate people who didn't have that.
You cannot do it. And that's why he respects me so much. You know, he respects me a lot.
Right. So what's this?
Cosmic Sounds. It's another like disco record by a Cameroonian guy who was produced by Harry Moscow, who is another band he used to produce,
Funky.
the Funkies. And Harry Moscow produced this album, and it's very...
Jack Solo was some funky, all of them.
Yeah, it's a very sought after record, and it's just a crazy record. It's like house before house, and amazing keys.
see, a lot of their lines, you see, different from the Western world.
Yeah, totally. I think that's why it's so popular in the West.
Because they have to put in that African element. Instead of just copy Valley Brothers as Valley Brothers. You cannot copy, you can't be.
Yeah.
There's no way you can be like the Beatles, no matter what you do.
Sure, yeah. Wow, it's incredible.
If members of the Beatles cannot be like the Beatles, who are you to be like the Beatles?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, Paul McCartney can never play like Beatles now.
Yeah.
No matter what he does, he can't achieve that team,
Yeah.
teamwork of the Beatles. None of the individuals can achieve it.
It's funny hearing you say this about you encouraging musicians to embrace, traditional African.
Yes, that was my main.
Because, as like a Western listener to African music, I assumed that was something, natural and something that everyone wanted to do.
Everybody wanted to copy American disco, funk,
Right, okay.
and sound like Americans.
Sure.
They sing like Americans, all sorts of. I discouraged it.
Okay, right. Yeah,
I was
it's
discouraging
wild.
it.
So,
I would just say, no, I can't record, I can't produce it.
yeah,
Otherwise, go to the village and get this, then we can do it like this. You want to sound like Beatles, you want to sound like Valley Brothers, you want to sound like Cliff Richard, how can you?
Eugene in Denmark, guitar.
Indiana, yes. Oh, Indiana.
Gonna tell us.
I so like Indiana. It was then
He used to put his picture on some albums, like Quincy Jones used to do.
it was
hold that up to the camera there.
It was the MD who called my attention to Quincy Jones to say, you are as big as this man, you have done more records than that man. Put your picture too, start putting your picture on records.
Sure, the records were more yours than the artist's almost.
But it just shows how influential he was at the time. Because for a producer to say, I want my picture on an album,
How did he say so? The MD had said I must
it
put
took a
it.
lot of, there was a
Because my picture even sells the album.
Yeah, sure.
It sells the album, and once they know my production, distributors will pick them.
Okay, I think we have time for about one more record. You guys want to?
Okay,
Finish
I'm going
it
to
off.
play this one, which I like very much. It's an album called Real Life by Ben Ophir. And I think it's got two great songs on it. It was like one of those one-hit wonders, But because he produced it, he made it something, more than it could have otherwise been. And there's this track that is just like, has this badass hip hop bass line that was used by many hip hop producers at the time. Most of the record is not very good, but this one is amazing. That's the white line, Grandmaster Flash bass line.
We're gonna rock you with your downstairs, wanna be a sexy superstar.
You know, back to what I was telling you about. You never really hear what he's saying, what he's rapping, but it was okay. It was okay. It didn't matter. You know,
Very cool. That's all that
it
matters.
was, you know, the music was enough to rock the party, and that's all you did. So
Yeah. You get that roller skate. I'm gonna slide on the floor. This is like you can I'm getting a basket. I'm getting a bottle. Still like
Como was that?
like it's turning to a sexy superstar.
Then I was my man. I just love it for that discipline.
I say, I'm gonna do it. Gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna shoot. I'm gonna shoot it down. I'm gonna slide on the floor. I'm gonna bust you. I'm gonna bubble. Go like a dynamite. Like a sensuous sexy superstar. I wasn't gonna bust you up, bubble and bust like a sugar tasting on the air. I say, right. Come on. It's bubbly, bust like a honey liquid. It's a thing not sneak. Let the DJ quote. Section 4. I'm section 35. I'm section 68. I'm the criminal code. I say, God. Come on. You get a kiss, kiss out of the free. Happy than hell, body in the glue. They're singing and all. Get a clap your hands, everybody. I say clap your hands. Honey, any coming from me, not like a fantasy. I say no way. And let the book it get a poppy star brass. And I got a poppy. Rockin' roll, let's get in about slide on the floor. To a point at the fine, on the big and hard. You gotta fuck up and down the beat, singing in the all. Everybody rock, what do they do? I say, come on, rock, what do they do? Everybody.
the thing is, someone like Jake Solo, who we need to talk about, had an amazing collection of keyboards, amazing collection. Because he used to tour with Cibisa, and you know, so he was very. Most of the Lagos musicians were very cosmopolitan. They were very, you know, they were global travelers. You know, so they knew whenever a new keyboard came out, they knew about it, and they checked it out.
We checked it out. We buy them. We bought them.
Then our currency was very strong. So a lot of them could afford all this stuff. So Jake Solo, unfortunately, he died at 36, but we need to mention him. He was an amazing artist. And
amazing artist and producer.
He worked with his first group, the Hikers.
Yeah, exactly.
When he was a teenager. He worked with them.
Wow.
And the band, personnel changed and became the Funkies. And then he went solo. And he joined the Cibisa for a few years and then stayed in London and started producing for Tabansi.
To work together, eh?
He
died.
And he actually...
He sent me a cassette tape audition that he wanted us to work together on it. It was high life music. Just as we wanted to hold the first meeting, he died.
He actually, I think he signed one of these records. The record he signed. Maybe it's not. He signed one of his records and to him, to Odion, said.
Yes.
So he had a lot of respect for Odion at the time, and
so much.
It's you can't overemphasize his influence on the industry, on the musicians, on the progressive musicians. they really appreciated what he was doing, and some more than others. The really progressive guys really understood the importance of
What I was trying to do.
Yeah.
Some thought I was too strict or I was too.
But the ones that really got it really had a lot of respect for him, and Jake Solo had a lot of respect for Odion.
Just like Fela.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of amazing listening to these records and, realizing that so much of the distinct sound of kind of West African music, particularly Nigerian, was your kind of you pushing for the African sound.
Yeah, African elements.
Wow, it's amazing. I think we're pretty much out of time. Thanks so much for
Thank you very much.
coming by today and speaking about some incredible records. Just before
It's a pleasure, me coming along.
totally stop, do you want to just what's the first release on Odion Livingstone?
Odion Livingstone.
We hope it's going to be Friday night,
Right. Okay.
and then the next one is going to be it's going to be a secret for now. But it's
okay.
probably one of the albums he worked on, the early rock disco things.
Great.
And then we're going to do a compilation on the sounds, the progressive sounds that you could hear on radio, And also we want to do a proper highlight compilation.
Amazing.
From a Lagos perspective.
When can we expect the first release to be out?
Before the end of the year.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Great. Well,
Short K7.
great. Can't wait to hear it. You'll have to send me a test pressing or a promo.
You get it, man.
Guys, thank you so much. Much appreciated. It was really
It's a pleasure.
an honor talking to you guys.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, John.